What if Nikon is finally about to drop a true flagship APS-C mirrorless camera? I'm talking about something that could potentially replace the legendary D500, but in the Z-mount system, because right now there are some pretty exciting rumors floating around about the Nikon Z90, and if half of these specs are true, this could be one of the most important cameras Nikon has released in years. So today, I'm going to break down the rumored specs, talk about how realistic this camera actually is, and more importantly, who this camera is for and why it matters a lot for Nikon shooters. Before we get into specs, let's take it back a step. Nikon has been absolutely crushing it over the years with camera releases like the Nikon Z8 and the Z9, which are high-end, full-frame, flagship-level performance cameras. But there's one major gap in their lineup, a true pro-level APS-C camera. And if you've been shooting Nikon for a while, like myself, you already know I'm talking about the D500. That camera was awesome. It was a beast. I loved it. Wildlife shooters, sports photographers, we all loved it. People just love that camera, and ever since the Nikon has moved into mirrorless, there hasn't really been a direct replacement. So the question is the Nikon Z90, or will it be finally that camera? Alright, let's talk about what's actually being rumored, because this is where things start to really get interesting. We're hearing about a 33 megapixel APS-C stacked CMOS sensor paired with the XSpeed7 processor. Now, if that's true, that's huge, because stacked sensors equal what? Speed. We're talking about faster readout, less rolling shutter, and performance that starts to get into the Z8, Z9 territory, just in a smaller format. Rumors suggest 15 to 30 frames per second burst shooting. That will put it right up where the cameras like Canon EOS R7 and the Fuji X-H2S. But here's the thing, if Nikon nails autofocus with that speed, that could be awesome. This could be a serious wildlife and sports machine for sure. This is the part that gets me excited. AI-driven autofocus, pulled straight from the Z8 and Z9. So we're talking about subject detection, eye tracking, animal tracking, real-time recognition, autofocusing as well. If Nikon could bring that system to an APS-C body, that's a game changer for sure. Now this one is huge. Rumors are saying 5-axis image stabilization in the camera. Now, if you know Nikon's DX lineup, you already know. This would be the first time we see IBIS in an APS-C Nikon body. That alone would make this camera way more appealing for handheld shooters, hybrid creators, and run-and-gun videographers. We're looking at oversampled 4K at 60 frames and 120 to 180 frames per second in full HD. So now this isn't just a photo camera anymore. It's become a legit hybrid camera. Now let's talk about the build and design. It will have a weather-sealed magnesium alloy body with a 3.2-inch articulating or tilting screen, so it's definitely not going to be entry level. This is obviously positioned as a serious camera. Now let's talk about storage. It will have dual card slots, a CF Express Type B and a SD UHS 2. And again, that screams pro level work. And me, I'm very familiar with that from the Nikon Z6 Mark III. Now let's talk about positioning, because this is where things get even more interesting. If this camera is real, it sits below the Z8 but way above the cameras like the Z50 or ZFC. So think about it like this. You have the Z50, Z30, ZFC, okay, which are great for entry level or content creators. Now the rumored Z90 is more of the enthusiast pro level APS-C powerhouse. And then above that, you have the Z6 III, Z8, Z90, which are all full frame professional cameras. But here's a twist. The Z90 could outperform full frame cameras in speed. And that's what we're gonna really expect, honestly, especially for wildlife, sports, and action photography. if this camera is real, it's going to be perfect for a few key types of shooters. You got wildlife photographers. Now, APS-C gives you that extra reach, right? With that smaller sensor, a 300mm lens suddenly feels like a 450mm, which is obviously a huge advantage. Now, for sports photographers, a fast burst rate plus advanced autofocus plus that crop factor, that's exactly what you want for tracking action. Now, hybrid creators, this is going to be awesome. If Nikon includes strong video features plus an IBIS, this becomes a powerful all-in-one camera. Now, if you're often traveling or you're a run and gun kind of a shooter, a smaller body, lighter lenses, and more reach equals a way more efficient setup. Now let's talk about something that doesn't always get enough attention. APS-C sensors still matter, and a lot, really. There's this idea in photography that full frame is always the best and the only way to go, but that's not always true. Here are some real benefits to an APS-C sensor camera. Extra reach with a 1.5 times crop factor, which is perfect for wildlife and sports. Smaller and lighter gear, which is great for traveling and longer shoots. Faster readout speeds, especially with stacked sensors, which is always an advantage. First of all, it's more affordable setups. You get camera bodies and lenses tend to be a little bit cheaper, and honestly, for a lot of photographers, APS-C is actually the smarter choice. Now let's bring it back to the big question. How likely is the Nikon Z90? Now here's my take. Nikon needs this camera. They've already proven they can build an incredible autofocus system, check. They've already developed stacked sensor technology and put it in some of their cameras, check. The only missing piece? A flagship APS-C camera. And if competitors like Canon and Fuji in the mirrorless world are already dominating that space, it makes sense for Nikon to step back in with a flagship beast of a camera. And so, in my opinion, this actually feels very possible. But I want to hear from you. Would you buy a Nikon Z90 if these specs were real? Do you think Nikon even needs a flagship APS-C camera right now? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. And if you enjoy this kind of content, breaking down the camera rumors, sharing about gear reviews and all the such, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel and give you this video a hype. I'm Robert Silver, and until next time, keep shooting and stay creative.